Hey, how's it going, YouTube? This is a part 2 video of a fix that I had previously done on this Game Boy. Now, I know there's nothing else that's wrong with this, so this week I decided to also include this video that will show the cleaning process and everything that I do to kind of restore cosmetically the Nintendo Game Boy. So there are a couple things that are pretty obvious. So as you can see, it's pretty yellow. We're going to go ahead and restore this, and I'll show the process and all the steps. So I am going to go ahead and also replace this screen. I'm going to show how to clean the terminals and also make sure how to remove all this yellowing from the Game Boy. So you can see it's pretty yellow here. I'm also going to show how to open up the Game Boy and, safely take out all the components so that way you don't risk damaging anything on here. All right, so we're going to open this up. This is held down by 6 tri-wing screws. And so these are here, and this is going to be a size 0 tri-wing bit that I have on here. So let's go ahead and open this up. So now that the 6 screws are removed, we're going to go ahead and simply remove the top casing, or I guess in this case it's the bottom, but we're going to separate the casings, and this is held down by a ribbon. So you don't want to be too rough. You don't want to just open it because then you risk damaging this cable. So we're just going to gently open it. Once we have it open, we want to just simply remove the ribbon cable. Just be gentle, don't pull too hard. So now that we have these two separate, we can go ahead and move the display to the side, and let's just focus on the CPU side of the board. So this is actually held down by 2 screws. These are using a Phillips. I'm using a size 1 bit here, and we're going to go ahead and remove these 2 screws. This right here is the sister board that is used for the headphone jack. We're also going to go ahead and remove that. So this is also held down by 2 Phillips screws. So now that all the screws have been removed, and it's really just those 4, we're going to go ahead and gently remove the board from here. And there we go. So now that this is removed, there's this plating, and this is also held down by 4 screws. So we're going to go ahead and remove that. Now that the 4 screws have been removed, you can just simply lift this. Now this stuff is really fragile, but we're going to go ahead and put it to the side. Remove this. This is just the toggle for the power. Now these are terminal contacts. We're going to go ahead and remove them. There should be 3 of them. There's 1, 2, and then a 3rd one up here. So I use this dental pick just to simply push down on it and then slide it out. So here, there's that first one, and then we're going to do the same for the second one. And then just slide it out. And the 3rd one here, we're just going to go ahead and push it and then slide it down. And there we go. So we're going to go ahead and set this to the side, and we're going to go ahead and clean this, and I'll show you in a little bit how. So now we have the casing for the LCD. Everything should be attached. And this is really just held down by a bunch of screws, and these are denoted as you've seen in some of my previous videos. These screws, and they have the white circles on them. Simply, you're going to want to go ahead and remove all these screws. This is being held down by a Phillips screws. So you can use the size 1 that you've used for the other ones, and it should simply come off once you have everything removed. All right, so once all the screws have been removed, we can simply go ahead and lift this up. I'm just going to grab it gently by the ribbon cable and pull my direction. We're going to go ahead and set this to the side. You can see how dirty these are. So I accidentally removed the screen, but I'm going to go ahead and show you. Once you have the casing out, you just simply push outward, and this should release the screen from here. Now this is trash, so I'm going to go ahead and throw it. So let's start out by getting rid of this adhesive. In order to remove this adhesive from the front of the screen, this one's a little tough. I'm going to use a flathead that's thin enough to kind of scrape it. And I'm also going to go ahead and just kind of leave alcohol solution. On this one, I'm using 99%. So I'm just going to kind of leave it here sitting for a little bit. And then I'm just going to simply go with this flathead and just kind of scrape along the side. So here I can kind of show what I do, just kind of at an angle. And don't dig too deep either, just kind of, it should be fairly easy to just kind of go at an angle and remove it. So to clean this, you can just use like a paper towel. I just use these little pads of cotton, and it's just to kind of scrape away some of that adhesive and see what's remaining so I can keep scraping that off. But regardless, I'm gonna go ahead and clean this in a little bit anyway with some warm water and soap. There's a little bit here, so we're just gonna go ahead and scrape that off. All right, so I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna put this in a bin that I'm gonna use to wash all these pieces anyway. So let's go ahead and just put the plastic parts in here. Anything that is washable. So in here, I just put, you know, the little rubber membranes as well as the buttons and the plastic. And don't forget to put this piece here for the power switch and these terminals. Now there are different ways of doing it. This one looks pretty clean. For this one in particular, I mean, these look pristine, so I don't imagine I'm going to do anything to these. As you can see, yeah, they're all pretty good, so I think these are good. I'll leave those alone. All right, so now we're going to move to the board, and to simply clean this, I think this one actually looks pretty good. Doesn't look like there's a lot, but nonetheless, whenever you're cleaning these boards, you're going to want to use 99% IPA, or if not, just like a high concentration. I have 99 and 91. Both should be fairly good at cleaning this up. So. In order to clean the speaker, I just simply soak up the cotton swab with some alcohol and then just simply go around in circles gently, because this plastic is super thin, so it can actually tear or damage it. Just be real gentle. So that looks pretty good. We cleaned that up. We're gonna go ahead and flip the board over and just simply clean this up. All right, so I think that looks pretty clean. So let's go ahead and set this to the side. So for this next part, I'm actually going to use some warm soapy water to clean out these pieces, and I just go ahead and use a toothbrush to kind of scrub through it and get to some of those recesses. Once that is done, I go ahead and inspect it and then just do some final detailing to make sure that anything that I did miss is cleaned off. So let me go ahead and get some warm soapy water, and let me go ahead and go through this process. Now that we have our soapy water, we're going to simply just grab the pieces that we're going to clean and just go and start cleaning them. All right, so once I'm done scrubbing it off, you can see that there's still some pieces that are still pretty dirty. I went ahead and rinsed this off and I laid it out on a towel. I'm gonna go ahead and start working on some of the detailing that I normally do at the end of this. So you can see here, the brush wasn't long enough to get to some of these things. So we're gonna go ahead and just kind of do some of the final touches on this. So we'll go ahead and start with some of this stuff. So there are a couple little scuffs right here, these dark areas. Some of these are bites, but like the ones right here in particular, I tend to use a little bit of this product called Plastics, and I just go ahead and put some on the Q-tip, just a small amount. So, whoops, that's way too much. So I'm just gonna dab a little bit on here. So right here you can see the stain where the sticker was left. We're going to apply a little bit of plastics there as well. Next step we're going to do is go ahead and start restoring this back to its original color. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I do that. Now that these are significantly dry, you can see how yellow they are and pretty much its original color here. All right, now that everything's ready, I went ahead and got these little glass containers where I can go ahead and submerge the Game Boys, and I'm going to use hydrogen peroxide, and this one is actually 12%. So I'm going to go and do that. So we're going to just pour it gently in here. Now I'm going to use a couple of screws to weigh these down. So there you go. We want to make sure that they're fully submerged, and in this case they are. Now we're going to do the same thing for this next one here. I'm going to go ahead and just put it on the white parts, and the reason for that is that we prevent having like these spots that appear, because if we put it over the yellow, then it can leave kind of like an imprint. And since we're going to be covering that up, that probably makes the most sense as to where to put it. So here I have the UV box that I created, and this is to essentially Retrobright the consoles back to their original state, or to remove a lot of that yellow. All right, now that everything's ready, we're going to go ahead and leave this for a couple of hours, maybe anywhere between 12 to 36. We're going to check on it periodically and see once it's ready, then we're going to go ahead and take them out once that's done. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. All right, so it's been 2 days. Let's go ahead and take a look. And from what I can tell, the back one looks ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that one out. I'm going to leave the front cover to sit in here maybe one more day. From my perspective, there's a bit of yellowing. I know from the camera it's not picking it up. So I'll go ahead and leave it one more day and see how it turns out. All right, so that looks pretty good. I think I'm going to go ahead and just rinse it off with some water just to kind of get rid of some of that hydrogen peroxide. And then once we let it dry, we're going to go ahead and reassemble it. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, and we're back. Everything seems to be dried out. So we're going to go ahead and start reassembling. I'll start with the bottom for now. Put this on. And the 4 screws. And these will go on the bottom 4 right here. So these 4. We're also going to want to put back the terminals. So there are 2 different types. There's one that says W1. You can see that W1 denoted right there. And the other one is the W2. These W2s are going to be the 2 in the bottom, and the W1 is going to be the top middle. All right, now that all the terminals are back in, we're going to want to flip this around and put the motherboard with the cartridge reader. So this is where all the CPU and all that stuff is. This cartridge reader is going to be facing down, so there's going to be a cutout where you can place it. So you're just going to have to adjust it. And this sister board is going to be facing this way. And you're going to line this up with the terminals and just push it in. So this other piece here for the headphone jack, this is going to be in this cutout right here. You can just line it up, and it has the 2 screw holes here. So we'll go ahead and screw that in place. And then we have the other 2 screw holes right here, and these are these 2 black circles. That's where the screws will go. We're gonna also want to put this switch back, this little plastic piece, and the long side right here that you can see is gonna be facing inside the cutout, and you're gonna want to line it up with this little cutout here with the switch along the board. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so now that we're done with this, we're gonna want to work on the display board. And so here we're gonna first put the buttons. So now that all the buttons have been put back together, we're gonna want to go ahead and get the display board, and we're gonna want to give it one quick clean before we reinstall it. So I just use this type of cloth here. This is pretty safe. And then just kind of give it a quick clean. All right, so this is as clean as we're probably gonna get it. So it looks pretty good. All the existing scuffs that are on the screen are unfortunately probably gonna remain there since they're scratches. We're gonna go ahead now and just get the case and simply put it, but be sure that the buttons are seated properly. We're gonna first want to install it with the speaker going in first, and the reason for this is because the board's gonna sit over it, and it has a little piece of plastic here that you can see, and it's gonna line up with this cutout and the speaker. So let's go ahead and put that in there, and then place the board over this, and there we go. Everything should align properly. Now we're gonna have to go ahead and put all the screws back into the holes, and the screws go into the holes with these little white circles, as you can see here. The only one that you're not gonna put it in is into this one, and it's denoted by pretty much a symbol that says don't put the screw in there. So let's not do that. And let's go ahead and just put one down just to kind of fasten it in place, and then put all the remaining screws. I'm gonna go ahead and put the screen. We're gonna go ahead and attach the ribbon cable from the top housing to the bottom. Just be careful with the ribbon cable not to damage it when you're putting it back in. Finally, we can go ahead and just close the Game Boy, and we're just gonna use the 6 existing tri-wing screws to close this off. Let's go ahead and test it out and see if everything's still working. All right, so everything seems to be working. Everything looks nice. I think it turned out pretty well. We did the hydrogen peroxide, so I mean, there is a little bit of kind of still a bit of staining, but it's really hard to tell. I mean, it looks really good as far as I can tell. You really have to look for that type of imperfection, and I'm really pleased with the results. If this is something that you're having issues with, then this might be a way to kind of restore some of that yellowing. One of the things I did notice is that this Game Boy is a little bit faint. It's not as dark as perhaps this one, so this is something to look out for. So we went ahead and restored this. I think it turned out really good. I mean, it looks as good as it probably can get, and I'm very pleased with the results. Now this one was a little bit more damaged than some of the other ones that I had, just due to all the bite and claw marks, but I thought this would make an excellent video as a restoration so that you can see kind of how far along we took it just to kind of get it back to its original condition, and I'm actually very pleased with the results. If this is something that you might be having issues with in regards to some of the yellowing, this is known as, I guess, a form of retrobrighting, and I created that UV box, and I was inspired by an existing video from Odd Tinkering. He has a great channel with a lot of content, and I was inspired based on those findings, and it seemed to turn out pretty okay. I mean, I've used it in some of my other restorations on plastics, and like I said, I'm very pleased with it, and hopefully if this is something that you guys are interested, just be careful when you're constructing anything like that. If you don't know what you're doing with like electrical equipment or any of the chemicals, just be very careful with any of that stuff. All right, so this wraps up today's content. Hopefully you enjoyed today's content on the restoration. And if you like this, make sure to drop a like below or leave a comment. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe as I'll be releasing more content in the future. All right, see you guys next time.